I know that some of you listening to this podcast are already solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, small business owners, but some of you are probably still working in a regular job, a 9-to-5 job, dreaming of leaving it someday and starting your own business. Well, what if I told you that your job is not important, that it's kind of meaningless? Well, let's talk about that in this episode. I'm Larry Cornett, and this is Invincible Solopreneurs. This is issue 170. If you go to newsletter.invinciblesolopreneurs.com, linked a few things, and I have a few funny videos that I've shared on this topic. One of those is about this concept of your office job not being important, and that links to a pretty funny video from a comedian named Ali Woods, or Ollie Woods. I'm not sure how he pronounces it. And he's talking about his own job and other jobs. And he said, your job didn't exist hundreds of years ago, right? It's kind of made up out of nothing. So being a social media writer didn't exist, and is it all that meaningful? Being a marketing executive, what the heck is that? And so kind of funny, just poking fun at it. But I upset quite a few people on LinkedIn when I made a similar comment a few months ago. I can't remember how long ago this was. And I said something to the point that most companies and most jobs don't need to exist. They just don't. They're kind of made up. And it's all part of this system that we've created to move money around between companies and employees and create jobs to feed the economy. But the jobs don't really need to exist, and the companies, they don't need to exist either. I guess this really touched a nerve because I brought that comment up again in the context of an article I'd shared. Pretty good one about Gen Z and how they're viewing their corporate careers and how their jobs really aren't that important. And that's actually something that they can leverage. I'll get into that in a bit. And lo and behold, someone became angry with me again. It's like, ironically, this person works for a pretty stupid corporation that you all know, that provides a service that you all know, that is destroying our planet's resources for dubious benefit and some pretty horrendous stuff that they're doing. So great. You have a job at a corporation that's helping to destroy our culture and our planet. Congrats. Good for you. But hey, what do I know? Secretly, I think many of us know this is true, though we shouldn't say it out loud, especially those of you that are still employed, if you want to keep receiving your paycheck. You don't want to be saying to your employer, I think my job is pointless. I don't think it needs to exist. I think this whole company's pointless. I think it doesn't need to exist. Yeah, you're not going to do that because you have to make a living. Hey, we've all been there. And believe me, I've had some pointless roles at some companies that I started to question whether they even should exist anymore. I think that many companies, especially in this modern world, especially in tech, don't provide any real tangible value. They provide value just to each other in this weird, incestuous ecosystem of mutually supporting each other and corporate theater and meaningless employment. Just meaningless employment. A lot of people keeping busy doing what? And not only do many of those companies not generate real value for the world or for humanity, some of them are actually net negative. They are damaging our society. They are putting our children at risk. They're putting our well-being at risk. And the world would be better without these companies. When I think about them not existing, I think the world would move on. It would be like, oh, well, it'd be disruptive for a little while. But these companies didn't exist before. They don't really provide value that improves our lives. There's little things here and there that they claim to do, and you can find little tidbits, but it's net negative, right? Case in point, Meta, Facebook's parent company. They wasted 73 billion with a B, billion dollars on their ridiculous metaverse concept. Absolutely ridiculous. And now they're laying off thousands of employees because they've decided, oh, it's not working. This is ridiculous. And everybody knew it was ridiculous. As soon as we saw it, I tried it. I think maybe you've tried it. We're like, what is this garbage? This is the future of work? This is the future of human interaction? No, thank you. And not only is it stupid and pointless, they've been exposed as putting kids at risk. There was a whistleblower, and she was saying that kids were being harassed by adults in horrible ways every time she went into the metaverse. And she exposed them, blew the whistle, they attacked her, and now Meta's lawyers are covering up evidence of child exploitation. They had research that they're burying. They're trying to cover it up. That's what lawyers do now. And I tell you what, the world would be better without Meta. It's already been proven that Instagram is not good for kids. It's not good for young adults. It's bad for our mental well-being, our mental health. Their ad platform is ridiculous, and how it exploits businesses and us and all that garbage. I've given up on Facebook. I've taken it off my phone last year. Are there little things that you get out of Facebook? Sure. Could it be better spent in other ways? Absolutely. Oh, I'm connected to friends and family. Well, you'd probably be better off calling friends and family, seeing friends and family in person, instead of thinking that you're staying connected by dumping crap into the feed. The net value is negative, right? The world would be better without Meta. And look at all those jobs, all those thousands of people employed to keep this ecosystem running that is actually not good for our culture or good for our planet. Take a look at what's happening right now with AI. This was recently published. There's a great illustration of this. They're showing how billions of dollars are flowing between Nvidia, OpenAI, and Microsoft in this infinite AI money loop of services and chips and hardware and services. It's ridiculous. I mean, does OpenAI need to exist? Do we really need ChatGPT? Some people are in love with it and would say, I can't even function without the plagiarism machine. How would I even write emails or reports or do my work without it? Other people despise it. They say it's destroying human creativity. It's taking innovation away from us. We're losing our skills. We're losing our ability to think. We can't even do a single thing without checking in with ChatGPT. And it's a drain on our resources too, right? So you tell me, do these companies need to exist? Are they adding value? Or is this just one big silly circle, this ecosystem that's been created? So here we have, this is just a few examples. I mean, if you've worked in the industry, if you worked in any industry, you probably have seen a whole bunch of companies that you're like, I don't think this company really needs to exist. What's the point of this company? I think the products they create don't need to exist. What's the point? And they're hiring people for these jobs that are mostly pointless. There's an author, his name's David Graeber, who calls these bullshit jobs. In his book, titled appropriately, Bullshit Jobs, a Theory. So what is a BS job? Well, the defining feature is this. This comes from a quote in an article that I've linked. If you go to newsletter.invinciblesolopreneurs.com, this is issue 170. The defining feature is this: one so completely pointless that even the person who has to perform it every day cannot convince themselves there's a good reason for them to be doing it. They may not be able to admit this to their coworkers. Often there are very good reasons not to do so, but they are convinced the job is pointless nonetheless. Bullshit jobs are not just jobs that are useless. Typically, there has to be some degree of pretense and fraud involved as well. The employee must feel obliged to pretend that there is, in fact, a good reason their job exists, even if privately they find such claims ridiculous. And I have to apologize. I'm kind of losing my voice today for some reason. I'm not sure why. So sorry if I don't sound like I usually do. They gave an example. I mean, there was one that was like, this guy, secretly they get information like this. This person said, I'm a security guard in a museum or an art gallery or something like that, and I am guarding an empty room. And it makes no sense. There's no reason for me to be doing it, but they tell me that I have to do this, and I can't have a book. I can't do anything else because I'll get distracted and I have to be focused, right? And he said, I'm guarding an empty room. What's the point of that? There are lots of jobs like that. I remember somebody said, yeah, I'm supposedly helping people with administrative tasks, but there's nothing for me to do. So they said, look busy. You don't want the bosses to see you sitting around or goofing off or playing games. So you got to look like you're busy, but we don't have anything for you. So just try to look busy. I remember it was ridiculous. I'm not going to name the company, but there was this guy who sat at a desk in a really bizarre supply closet. So it was this long, narrow supply closet, and his desk was between the door and blocking access to paper and pens and notebooks and binders and paper clips, all this stuff that used to be accessible. So we used to be able to go in and grab a notebook or a pen or whatever we wanted. Well, this company did some research and said, oh my gosh, do you know how many millions of dollars are being wasted because people are taking too many notebooks and too many pens? So they have these people, and there probably was somebody in every office, right? Every building on this campus that would sit there, and you had to go in and ask for a notebook, and they would say, what do you need it for? And then you would get a notebook. Most of the time, this guy did nothing, because I had to walk by the supply closet multiple times a day to go to meetings and to go get coffee or go get lunch. And the door was always open. If you looked in, he was sitting at the desk reading a newspaper. He would read the newspaper all day long, do the crossword puzzle, take naps. Most of the time, he was absolutely doing nothing. Full-time job just for the occasional person that said, I need a pen. Well, why do you need a pen? Here you go. Here's a pen. Totally a BS job. We've all encountered people working in BS jobs like this. There's a pretty famous scene in the movie Office Space. If you've watched that, I hope you have. If you haven't, check it out. It still holds up. And it shows the Bobs, these two guys, grilling an employee who obviously has a BS job. So the Bobs are these two consultants that the company hired to try to make their daily operations at the company run more efficiently and maximizing profits. So that actually means, who can we fire? Who needs to be laid off? So they're asking this guy about how he takes reports from the customers and gives, requests from the customers and gives them to the engineers, but they find out he doesn't actually do it. He says his secretary does it. Anyway, it's a very funny scene because it's kind of showing, it's like, you don't really need to exist. You're an in-between in this chain that's just in that place to get a paycheck. You don't need to exist. And I think we've all seen this, that there are tons of jobs like this where it's just like, hey, just keep busy. Gosh, I worked with lots of people like that would try to hide and disappear and look busy and barely get any work done, right? So it's like, why are these jobs here? And I think things recently kind of opened our eyes to all of this. One big event, obviously, was the pandemic. People found out suddenly that their job was not considered essential. Do you remember when essential workers were protected and still could go to work and they didn't have to stay at home? It's so people that worked in healthcare and emergency services, police, fire, you name it. There were some jobs that were considered essential, and the rest were like, yeah, you're not essential, just stay home. I think we also found that most people could do their jobs in 2 to 3 hours every day. When you got rid of hours of nonsense meetings and hallway conversations and all the ridiculous activities. Hey, there's a birthday cake in the break room. Let's go sing happy birthday. And all the interruptions when you're trying to get work done. People stopping by your office or your cube. When you got rid of all that and you could focus, you found out that you could get your work done pretty quickly. And that's a very common discovery, right? There's something called Parkinson's Law. And I don't know if you've heard that, but the quote is, work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. And it's true. If you tell somebody they have to get a specific task done and you say you've got 8 hours to do it, they will take all 8 hours to do it. If you say I just need it done in 2 hours, they'll get it done in 2 hours. I've seen this in my own work, even as a solopreneur, where it's like, if I don't put a time bound, kind of a boundary on the task and say, I got to get this done, it could take all day. It could take weeks. And it's just these tasks that maybe you don't really want to do. And there are ways for it to go on forever. Constantly researching, constantly getting more information before you make a decision. But if you tell yourself, I got to get this done. I need to get this done. I'm going on vacation tomorrow. Lo and behold, what do you know? You get it done. So that's kind of Parkinson's Law in action, where people discovered how quickly they could get work done. And then associated with the pandemic, remote work. And remote work opened up new possibilities for people. When they got rid of their commute and they were working from home and they could have multiple screens and nobody's looking over their shoulder physically, they discovered, wow, I can actually multitask more. Because this job, this task that I have to do, I can work on this and be working on something else at the same time. Some of that multitasking wasn't just for household chores where people were, I'm in a meeting and I'm going to be getting my laundry done or dishes done. I'm going to walk my dog or whatever it might be. Some of it actually took place across multiple corporate jobs. Some people have been caught doing this, but I do know someone who secretly works for 3 companies remotely, 3 companies at once. Each company thinks that they own 100% of this employee's time. In reality, this person is managing work across all 3 and getting paid for all 3. And this has been going on for years. They've realized that they can multitask, like they can be in multiple meetings at once. They can get their work done in very little time. So they can get all their work done and get all the work done for the other. And they can be like 2 hours, 2 hours, 2 hours, 6 hours. I'm done working for 3 companies. And so they're on salary with 3 companies. So what does that tell you? Are these jobs really that important that they take 100% of your time, 8 to 12 hours a day, every day of the week? Nope. They sure don't. And I remember kind of waking up to this I don't know if it was my first, second, I don't remember which corporate job it was, but we would work on projects and they would go on for a few weeks, sometimes months before they got canceled. And we would start over and start a whole new project. Be like, okay, we're changing strategy. We're moving in a new direction. Put that on the shelf. We're going to do something else. I can't even remember how many of my projects were canceled. And so there were months of work that were pointless, that never got used, that never meant anything, never shipped. And it really started to get to me. I was like, what am I doing? I'm working, in this case, pretty long hours and sometimes hustling, working nights and weekends for something that would just get canceled. And I remember somebody who'd been there a lot longer than I had who said, I know you're an eager beaver, you're young and new to this. Don't jump on something right away. So when you get assigned to a project and it's like, oh, this is so important, you better get working on it right away, come up with a draft, create a design, write a spec, do all this stuff. They said, let it sit over the weekend. And I found out quite a few times that I would slow down a little bit. And then a few days later, they would come in and say, you know what, forget that. We decided that's not the move we want to make. We're going to do something different. Scrap that. Start over. This is the new strategy. I was like, well, the old timers kind of know a few things. And so, yeah, I look at even that little microcosm of waste and unimportance, and I multiply that by millions of workers across millions of companies. How much of this is going on? And now we're seeing it with AI. AI is completely disrupting corporate jobs and office jobs. Some companies are using AI and automation to justify laying off thousands and thousands of employees. That's been happening over the last couple of years. Somebody said, I think it's like almost 500,000 employees have lost their jobs. Some of those companies immediately regretted that decision. They discovered, wow, this AI service is not quite ready for prime time. So they're hiring people back, but often at a lower compensation. So they're bringing them back as contractors, not full-time employees. And they're not giving them benefits or stock. So the whole working world is becoming much more mercenary about this stuff. And you should too. You should too. It was kind of the gist of the article I read about Gen Z and becoming very mercenary about their jobs and careers and saying, hey, this isn't my mission. This isn't my life mission to work with you or to buy into your mission or drink the Kool-Aid. It's a job. You will get from me what you are paying for. No more, no less. Yes, I'll put in the time. Yes, I'll deliver what I'm supposed to be delivering, but don't expect me to go above and beyond. And what they're doing instead is investing their time and energy in something else, right? So that is a strategy. As somebody who wants to become an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, you want to start your own business, but you're in a job right now, is you can play the game. You can play the game. It can feel silly to be busy working in a job that you fear is probably a little meaningless or pointless. But you know what? You can leverage that. You can leverage your corporate job, your office job, whatever it might be, to fund your business on the side. So you are the investor for your business rather than taking out a loan or getting investment, like startups do, raising a fund or whatever that might be. You're essentially funding yourself. You're doing what you need to do to satisfy the requirements of your job and make your employer happy, and taking your energy and time and that money to do work that actually matters on the side, to create real value for real human beings. And now a lot of solopreneur jobs are like that. You don't see a lot of made up jobs because you're getting hired to do something real and tangible. Especially if you're providing services to individuals, you're helping real people. You're meeting those people face to face, right? And there are jobs that really do matter. So I'm not talking about the jobs that are literally changing lives and doing things to better our culture, our society, to save human lives, to invest in science and our future, to do things that are going to save the environment, our ecosystem. You know, there are people working on things that truly are making a difference. The scientists and the researchers and the doctors and the firefighters, they're doing things that really matter and make a difference, and they need to keep doing them. And it's hard. Some of those jobs will never translate to an entrepreneurial opportunity. If somebody's a research scientist working in a lab with multi-million dollar equipment, you're not going to just run off and do that yourself on the side, right? So if that's your calling, if that's your vision for your life, by all means, keep going. I'm guessing if that is, you're probably not listening to this podcast because you're not thinking about quitting. You're not thinking about starting a business. So this is really for the people who are in a job that they're like, this is not feeding my soul. This is not my future. It's not what I want to really be doing. So play the game. Play the game, do your job while you are planning, while you are investing in your future freedom. That's essentially what I recommend for people. That's the kind of coaching I provide for people. They usually have a job or they may have a business of some sort, and they want to work on a plan for the business that's kind of their dream business that they'd rather be doing. And so that's what we work on. So playing that game means maybe you find a job that doesn't challenge you so much, but it still covers your living expenses. You can still pay your mortgage or your rent and groceries, support your family, whatever it is that you have to do. And very importantly, if you live in the U.S., it provides your health insurance and benefits, which is a real problem, right? That's a really important thing. And I know some people have done that. They have dialed back. They've taken a less demanding, less stressful job to give themselves the freedom to build a business on the side, and the mental energy, the physical energy, because it's less fatiguing, right? But it still covers their expenses. You could also find a job that lets you work mostly or even 100% remote. So if you do that, that frees up even more of your time. I've told the story of how I recovered anywhere between 2 to 4 hours a day from my commute when I was an employee. I used to commute 2 to 4 hours a day for 4 years. Actually, it probably went on for 8 years. One was less of a commute than the other, but in 8 years, I was driving anywhere between 2 to 4 hours a day on the freeway. So when I got that time back, wow. So if you are working remote and you don't have to commute and go to an office, that frees up even more of your time that you can invest in building the business you want. So be strict with your time, put in the right amount of time for your employer, get your work done, and then you're off the clock and you can focus on you. You can focus on the building the business you're trying to build. And keep doing this until your business is ready to cover your cost of living, right? It's at the point that if you put more time and energy into it, it will continue to grow and generate even more revenue and potentially replace your income entirely, or you make even more money doing that. Because that is the other option, is to redefine what the game is. So that's a different strategy, is to say, okay, I'm going to build an independent business, a bread and butter business that replicates my current job. So it's not my dream business. It's not what I really wish I was doing, but I know how to do this in my sleep. I've been doing this in my career for years. I'm very good at it. And that's what it is. And so people can hire you as a contractor or a consultant, which will be more cost effective than hiring a full-time employee who requires their total compensation to include benefits and stock and equipment and insurance and all the stuff they have to give you, right? Fully loaded head is way more than just the base salary. But you could charge enough to your clients to make more money than your base salary, more than you were making as an employee. That happened for me. My very first solopreneur business was essentially copying and pasting my previous job description. I had been a senior software designer. So I created a consultancy that was software design consultancy, doing exactly what I've been doing before, almost literally exactly the same job, but charging enough that I actually was making more money as a consultant than I had been as an employee. Of course, I wasn't getting stock, I wasn't getting benefits and all that kind of stuff, but my base salary was higher, the income that I was earning from the business. And the wonderful thing about doing that is I no longer had to participate in all the time-sucking BS events that I had to when I was an employee. I didn't have to go to all hands meetings. Didn't have to go to corporate offsites on the weekend. I didn't have to do the corporate picnic and all that stuff, right? I just did my work. And I didn't have to clock in and do a 9 to 5. I knew what I had to deliver and I could work on it. And if I got it done in 2 hours that day, I walked out the door, right? Charged what I was going to charge, walked out the door. So I was actually making more money in less time. So I had more time for my family. I had more time to invest back into the business, right? Into building what I wanted to build, finding other clients and doing marketing, all the stuff I had to be doing. So you can create a business that may not excite you. It's not your primary thing that you want to do, your passion, but it pays your bills. And it frees up your time to build the business you really want on the side. Because nothing says that you have to build one business at a time. That's sometimes kind of a misunderstanding with entrepreneurship, solopreneurship. It's different if you're an entrepreneur and you're raising money from investors or you're taking a loan. They kind of expect you to be 100% on that, right? Your investors are not going to be happy if you're only putting a fraction of your time into the startup that they spent money investing in. So, but if you're a solopreneur and you got your own business, nothing says you can't have multiple businesses. I have multiple businesses. I do career and leadership coaching, but I also do business coaching, and I also do life coaching, and I also do some consulting with startups and other tech companies. So I've got multiple lines of business. Some of them excite me more than others. That could be the same with you. Have a business that pays your bills. Put in the amount of time that you want to make the money you need, but then spend the rest of your time and your energy and your passion investing in the business that you really want for yourself and making that grow until it gets to the point that you could focus on it 100% if you'd like to. But at least you're making a living immediately. So that's it. That was kind of a long journey going through the discussion of companies and jobs being pointless, but getting to the end, which is really the point of leverage this to support yourself, to make the income that you need, and give yourself the time and space you need to build the business that you really want. Until next time, I wish you the best of luck with building the business of your dreams.